was in June of, I think it was 2002. I couldn't go to sleep. I felt there was something really, really wrong. So I called her cell phone and I left a message and I said, I know there's something wrong. I don't care what time it is, please call me and I will be there. And about 1:30, she called and she said, Mom, you have to come. And she was the one who said, Mom, I've got to go to the hospital. And I said, okay, let's talk about it. So on the way to the hospital, I asked what had happened, what she had done. And she said, I took an overdose of my pills, Mom. I just wanted to die. It still hurts. It still hurts. And every time she goes through this, even though I know she's better than she was before, at the back of your mind, there's still that gnawing feeling that it can happen again. That someone can cause her to go to that extreme. She's vowed that she will never let anything or anyone, but in mental illness, you never, ever know. It makes me feel really worried because I don't know how extreme it will be. There are times when it's not extreme and you catch it in time and you can get it under control in no time, with whether it's with adjustment of medication or just refocusing on the lifestyle, what she's doing compared to what she should do. So it's unnerving. It's worrisome. And when you know there is not much you can do except alert her to the fact that, slow down, something is happening. Well, I give it a day or two because if she doesn't get out of whatever state she's in that time, I feel it's serious enough to warrant some extra help. So I usually intervene, a day or two, 2 days max.
All right. How was your visit to doctor, the last visit? What was his suggestion?
Doubled my antidepressant, as we discussed before, just to get me through June.
Yeah, I know June is a very bad month, and we'll certainly work every possible way to get you through. I've noticed that, since the change in the medication or decrease or increase of whatever you're doing, there has been a change, because you certainly have lifted from the down in the dumps.
How do I help Paige the most as part of her support team? Well, I listen to her. And not just listen, I hear what she's saying. I talk about Paige's illness quite openly. It's not taboo, it's not hush-hush. My family and friends, all of them know. They all are very, very supportive. We make the network huge so that anyone who talks to her and realizes that she's having a down period, they can help her if I'm not available. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed of the stigma that is attached to mental illness. Speak out. Help your loved one as much as you can, in any way you can. Fight the stigma. Do volunteer work. Be an advocate for the mentally ill people, because That's the only way we can help our ill relatives, is by being educated ourselves and educating the people at large.
Penny's disease first manifested itself as depression. Around 1990 or so, she started to get depressed. At that point, she was in private practice as a psychiatrist. And as time went on, they had to more and more often cancel patients because she wasn't well enough to see them. And by 1994, she had to stop working. And she hasn't been able to work since then. But sorrow, I suppose, is the word for somebody who was as competent and as caring and as effective in her job as she was, to not be able to work anymore. So over the course of, I guess, beginning around this time of the year, throughout the summer, she became hypomanic and then more and more up towards mania, and eventually she had a full-blown psychotic episode. It was really bad. She almost died. She was convinced that she had diabetes mellitus, which is some sort of an imbalance of the potassium in the body. And so she was taking, at the end, she was taking over-the-counter potassium in large doses. And when we finally did get her into the hospital, to the emergency department, her potassium level was at about 10. Apparently a lot of people are dead by the time the potassium level gets to 10. They had to put her in the step-down unit, which is intensive care, and sort of do dialysis and spend 3 or 4 days trying to get her back to normal. And because I work with some of the doctors down there, when I went in that night, and one of my friends, the physician that was my boss in one of my jobs at that time, took a look at what was going on. He came out and he looked at me and he said, "Lloyd, how could you let this happen?" And I had no answer for him. You know, she was convincing. She was very convincing that this is what she needed to do, and I just went along with what she wanted, to the point where she almost died. Give me a call when you get to Wanda's place to get the phone set up, that sort of thing, so be able to be in contact.
Sure. I was going to do that automatically.
That's very exciting. Prince Edward Island in July.
Give you Betty's number too. So.
Oh, good, for sure, yeah. Both Bettys, that's right. When she's been in hospital, that particular time, 6 years ago, there was one period for about 3 weeks where she wouldn't let me come in to visit her because she was convinced I was on their side, because I'd sort of signed for her to be treated against her will. And I was happy she was in the hospital, but at the same time, it's very, very difficult to have the person that you feel closest to in the world rejecting you and thinking you're part of the enemy. After 3.5 months in hospital, she came home for a few months and spiraled down into depression reasonably quickly. And for a period of 2 or 3 months, she spent 20 to 22 hours a day in bed. I'd feed her, get her up, live for short periods of time. And she was seeing a psychiatrist, again, an outside psychiatrist, and that person had her on some antidepressants, which began to lift the depression. But what happens in a case like that is usually that the energy comes back before the depressive thoughts and the suicidal ideation and all that stuff starts to go away. And so one day when she was starting to feel a little bit better physically, she got a taxi and went down to the lake to drown herself. Fortunately, she was able to not do that. She came back home. She told me what she had done. I got a hold of that psychiatrist, and within half an hour, he was up with this paper in case he needed it. And we had her back in the hospital. This was a 3-month stay this time. They determined that she needed ECT to get her out of the depression, again, because I had the power of attorney. I was able to agree that this needed to be done. And it's a very difficult decision to have to make, to decide that someone you love is going to be shocked until they convulse, and they're going to be done. It's going to be done repeatedly. But a series of 14 shock treatments over about a month or 5 weeks or so did seem to turn the trick. So I would say most of the time we have a partnership again. If Penny gets really, really ill, just as if I got really, really ill with some sort of serious illness, then of course things change, and it becomes much more a priority to just devote as much time and effort as possible to, first of all, preserving the other person's life. And in mental illnesses, that's always a problem, because about 15% of people with bipolar illness will eventually commit suicide. About 10% of people with schizophrenia will commit suicide. So there's a genuine need there to make sure the person stays alive, get them some help. help them to get better. Take care of yourself.
Go get it.
Oh yeah, just waste this.
I was telling a friend that I was having trouble deciding how to pack, and it's mentally ill too, and she says, you just pack your medication. Anything else you can buy.
I'd say make sure you know who your relative's doctor is, what they're being treated with, the medications, etc. Find out what you need to do to get them help if they're having an episode. Get your relative to give you a power of attorney if at all possible for medical treatment, for sure, for finances, things like that, if possible as well. Build up your own support network to take care of yourself and realize that, no matter how sick the other person is, you still have to live your life. If we allow someone with a major illness, whether it's, again, cancer or heart disease or mental illness, to take all of the joy out of our lives, what's the point? Because all we have is now.
Need a hug, kiddo.
Okay, we are. Love you, Ben.
Love you too, bud.
I think anybody who sticks with a person who has a mental illness is heroic. They show an awful lot of courage, an awful lot of tenacity, an awful lot of stamina, an awful lot of empathy, an awful lot of responsibility. Reasonable, responsible adult human beings who are trying their best to help another person.
Well, Eleanor was a real special person to me. I'd never met anybody like her. When I told her, when I told her about myself, she was open and she was listening, and she came across to me as a person who was really grounded, really well. And I could talk to her. I could actually talk to her, and she listened, and she made comments and stuff like that. She's a great listener, and also she was a soulmate, because I was in this situation where I was denying that I had anything wrong with me, and I couldn't figure out how I could get a partner, because I wouldn't know what to do with my medication. Where would I hide all the medication? How would I explain the medication? I was so out of touch with myself that I couldn't imagine living with a person. But Eleanor not only was a soulmate, she also accepted the fact that I needed medication, and she did too. So there was nothing to hide. We didn't have any secrets. We could tell each other stories to each other, and we could talk and talk non-end. My turn to roll. That goes up here. Okay. Okay. Blue.
What's the most famous restaurant in Stockbridge, Massachusetts?
Oh, no. And I know it, right? I've heard of
I
it.
don't know.
I've heard of it, though, eh? Maybe. Give me any hints.
Arlo Guthrie.
It's his restaurant?
No,
That's
that's a hint.
I give up.
Alice's Restaurant.
Oh, my. Yeah. Like, for a couple of years there, I was under the delusion that the radio was doing something to me, like that somebody at the radio station knew me or something like that. And I'd put ads in the newspaper. Eleanor would help me; she'd pay for them, and I'd put ads in the newspaper. And it was a total trip, that I had this whole sense of reality that was skewed. Eleanor couldn't understand it. I talked to my sisters about it, and they said nobody would ever understand that. But it was like I was posting messages like you would in a blog, in the personals, And then one day I just woke up and I thought, well, no, that's not the way it is. And it just went away on its own. So I spent a lot of time in here reading books about such books that help me in coping. And in here I have a lot of my memories from when I was an electrician and from when I had hobbies, and it's just a source of strength for me to be able to have my own space.
I don't react to him now. That's one thing that the psychiatrist taught me was, okay, Don has this delusion, and he really believes it. I mean, he's right in the middle of it. But the psychiatrist said, don't you react, because it will go away. And it does.
Well, when Eleanor's mother died, she went into a really deep depression. And I had lost my father several years before, and I knew how devastating it was. I mean, it's just totally devastating for her. And I managed to try to cheer her up. She didn't go into the hospital or anything. I managed to keep her happy, keep her, like, we're busy. We go out to play bingo. She doesn't like bingo. She never did like bingo, but I took her to play bingo anyway. And I'm not sure how much of a help I was in making her happy, but we'd go dancing and, like she had depression, and it was a tough time for her. And to this day, she attributes me trying to make her happy to, keeping her out of the hospital, right?
When I was really depressed, I don't think I appreciated it as much. But when I started to get better, I realized just how wonderful he had been and how much he had put up with. I can recognize when Don starts talking a lot and he gets agitated and he paces, that something's really bothering him. He has a lot of anxiety, and he worries a lot about what people think. And I try and talk to him about that because I don't worry about what people think.
She's a reader, and I'm a thinker, and when she reads, I think. And we hold each other, and we truly care deeply about how we are together, And if Eleanor's not feeling well, I can tell, and I ask her, and I try to see if it's something that can be done about. And what do you think, Al?
Yeah. I think we have so much open communication. I'm not afraid to say anything to Don, and I don't think he's afraid to say anything to me. I think we can be honest with each other, and that really, really doesn't make it difficult. I take care of Don, and he takes care of me.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like he said, things that he can do, I can't do, and things I can do that he can't do. Like, I'm really good at budgeting, and he goes through money like water. So, we talk about anything we're going to buy. Don doesn't go out and buy anything without consulting with me. And we've managed, because of that, to do okay financially.
One of the things I do for Eleanor is Eleanor can't drive. So she bought a car, and I drive her. We drive together everywhere, like we go out for dinner. And so we're mobile because she can afford the car and I can drive. Is that honest to both of us?
Yeah. And it says, like, first do this, then do that, and then do this, and how to fill out the form. And you have to fill out the form really carefully. Put everything down. Like when I did CPP, I put everything